So it's about 2:20 in the morning on July 13th, and I feel like my contractions are about every 7 to 8 minutes at this stage. So for the last, I'd say, hour and a half, I've been just kind of breathing through them. Even in my sleep, I feel like I was falling asleep, and then I would, even if I felt like I was kind of breathing through them in my dream. But now I'm up because I'm a little bit hungry and I'm just really drinking a lot of water. So just fueling up on water and then just paying attention to my body. Hi everyone, hope you're all having a great day. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about my birth story and sharing with you what happened for my natural birth. And I'm so excited because there's a lot that you guys can learn from my experience, and I hope that I inspire those who are wanting to give a natural birth. Our daughter is sleeping right now. She's 3 weeks old today. I cannot believe 3 weeks has gone by already since she's been born. It's been really hard for me to get to the camera to share and talk with you. My daughter was born July 14th at 5:44 a.m. and it was truly the most amazing day of my life. I really couldn't have imagined things going any better than the way they went, and I'll just share with you a little bit of the details that happened. There's a lot that you can learn from my experience and just from the medical system as well. So basically she was born early Saturday morning, and my husband is a pilot, so he was on call earlier that week, and he got called in on Tuesday at 3 a.m. and at that point I was already almost a week past my due date. So I was almost at the 41-week mark. Doctors kept encouraging me to think about getting an induction, just to get induced in order to get things moving, because they don't like to wait past the 2-week post due date mark, which is the 42-week. But I had a feeling that things were just gonna happen naturally and the way that it was meant to be, and our daughter would come out when she was ready. So the Tuesday, he had to decide whether he was going to go away on a 3-day trip or not, and at 3 a.m. we were trying to decide whether he should go or just stay with me. I had this strong feeling and this strong instinct that it was okay for him to leave and that she would be arriving later in the week. It was strange. I just was really in tune with my intuition and my gut, and I just knew that it would be fine and he would be here when she decided to come. So he left Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and on the Tuesday during the day, I went to the doctor to check if I was dilated or not, just to give him a little bit of reassurance that she wasn't on the way at that moment. And she checked and I was 0 centimeters dilated. Now, she was really encouraging me to do a sweep, which is to stretch things out down there and get things slowly moving. And I refused because I didn't feel there was a need for any medical or external intervention at that point. It was still not even the 41-week mark, and a lot of my friends gave birth right at the 42-week mark, 2 weeks past the due date. So I still felt like there was time and there was no need to get things going. I just really was focusing on good mindfulness and just relaxing and just being really trusting my body. And so I declined that, and she kept saying, come back the next day and we'll start the induction process. So I went in the next day and she checked my dilation and I was still at 0 centimeters. And she was really trying to push me to get induced, which is an artificial way of getting things moving. You have the option to either accept or to decline this. A lot of women don't know that. They just assume by the way the doctors talk to you that you have to do it. But I just said, no, I'm not ready for this yet. And I just want to wait a little bit longer. And so she was sort of pulling her hair out because she was getting a bit nervous. But again, it's very common for babies to be late, and we don't need to push things when they aren't meant to be, you know, when it's not meant to be at that time. So that was the Wednesday. And then the Thursday, my husband came back, and by then my brother had come to stay with me at the house just so I wasn't alone. And so he was around. We went for a walk in the park that night. I wasn't feeling anything different. I was still feeling the same. And then around 1 a.m. on the Friday morning, which was late Thursday evening, I started feeling this constant menstrual cramp. So it was like a PMS cramp. It wasn't very strong. It was just subtle and it was there. I could feel it. And it wasn't coming and going either. So from 11 a.m. until about 4 p.m., that's what I was starting to feel. At that point, I was thinking I need to get a few errands done before the baby comes, because I had this feeling that she was coming on the weekend. I didn't know when, but I just I knew that there were changes happening in my body. The constant PMS cramp was one of them, and then also I looked in the toilet and I saw a big blotch of red bloody mucus that had come out. That's what you call the bloody show. So that's another indication that labor is very near and soon. So then I called the hospital just to let them know what was happening, and they said, why don't you come in and we'll check if you're dilated or not. So I said, okay. So just remember, the whole week I was 0 centimeters dilated, and I did nothing but relax, walk a lot, just breathe, and just be fully in tune with my body. And then on the Friday I went in around noon and they checked, and I was 2 centimeters dilated. So that was amazing news, because the progress was happening naturally, and I was just so happy and so proud that I was sticking to my guns by not allowing any external intervention, just to let Mother Nature take its course, do what the body was meant to do. So then the afternoon went by and I was starting to feel the PMS cramp. Then it would come and go every 10-15 minutes. So that's when I knew this probably is a contraction. The contractions are probably starting now. So again, it feels like a really bad period cramp. It kind of stays for 30 seconds to a minute, and then it leaves and you get a bit of a break. So I was feeling that all Friday afternoon from 1 until about 4 p.m. And then it started with, then the pain started with this lower back jab that would come in with the PMS cramp. So you would have the period cramp along with a low back pressure. It would sort of hold there for 30 seconds to a minute, and then it would release and I would have a bit of a break. So when that back pain started coming in, that's when I started feeling a little more uncomfortable. The other stuff was bearable. I was able still to move around. I was making lunch. You know, I just had to stop and breathe. But by 4 p.m. on the Friday, I could really start feeling the difference. So it's now 4:30 on July 13th, and I'm still having the contractions every 10 minutes, lasting about 30 seconds to a minute. Earlier today we went to the hospital just to see if I was dilated and to check the baby's heart rate and monitor, and the heart rate is perfect. My blood pressure is excellent, and they checked and did an internal exam and they said I was 2 centimeters dilated, which is really good. So they tried to push getting an induction right away, and I just said no, I'll just wait and see how tomorrow goes, because so much has happened in the last 24 to 48 hours. So overall, I was just lying around a little bit just because it's really hot and humid outside and it's a bit too hot to walk around, but we'll probably go for a walk in about an hour or two, because I do feel better when I'm moving. And my husband and my brother were here. They were timing the contractions just to make sure that it wasn't the real thing. And then I said, why don't you guys go out, play basketball at the park for half an hour? So I'll be home and I just need to breathe it out. I'll lie down and drink some water and see how things progress. So by 8 p.m., that's when I started feeling them every 5 minutes. So from 4 p.m. till 8 p.m., I really felt that change in my body. It just, you know, I was feeling the pain. I had to lie down and take my fist and push it against my lower back every time the contraction came on. I tried having my husband do it, but I just felt more comfortable doing it myself because I knew exactly where I had to push, and I just really wanted to stay focused on the breathing and just getting through the contraction when it was happening. And then so around 8, my husband and my brother were like, okay, I think we should go to the hospital now. We should call them and get over there. You're really looking a lot different now, and you're in a lot more pain. So we packed everything up and I was continuing to breathe, and we got to the hospital around 9:30, 10, and the hospital was only 2 minutes away. So that was a good thing. We didn't have to drive very far, and we got in and they checked to see how dilated I was, and I went from 2 centimeters around lunchtime on the Friday to 4 centimeters around 10 o'clock that same Friday. So again, more progress happening. The dilation was happening naturally, and that just really made me so happy and just so confident in my decision. And the doctor was like, okay, now you are in full labor. So pre-labor is when you're from 0 centimeters to about 4 or 5. Once you reach the 4 or 5 centimeter mark, that's when active labor starts. So that's when you have to be admitted and they start monitoring you. And by then I was really feeling that contraction pain. So they told us to walk the hallways of the hospital from 10 o'clock till 1 a.m. So my husband and I were walking down the hallways and I was just breathing through it. What I found really helped throughout the contraction was to just lean against the wall when the pain would come on, lean forward, take my fist and just push it against the lower back and just breathe like that. That's how I felt more comfortable. Everyone has their own technique and comfort, but that helped me. And then by the time 1 a.m. came around, I couldn't stand anymore. I was really in quite a lot of pain. So from 10 p.m. until 1 a.m. We went back to our room in the hospital. The doctor came in to check the dilation, and again I was 6 centimeters dilated. So from 4 centimeters at 10 p.m. to 6 centimeters at 1 a.m. and that just kept giving me the motivation, and that really kept me going and to just push through the pain. By that time, around 1:30, the doctor looked at me and she said, do you want an epidural? You look like you're in a lot of pain. I can give you a painkiller, an epidural. I said, no, I don't want anything. I'm letting my body do what it's meant to do. And I was reading a little bit about the epidural, how it can interfere with breastfeeding, that it kind of blocks the hormones, and it interferes with the natural process once the baby's born, that connection between the mother and the baby. So I just completely refused the epidural and just wanted to do things as naturally as possible. And I was able to just endure the pain. I knew it wasn't going to be very long, that she was on her way, she was arriving, and it was only going to be a few more hours and she would be here. So that's the mentality I was in. I wasn't thinking about the pain, I wasn't focusing on that. I was focusing on the positive things. And even by then I was lying on my side on the bed, because I found that lying on the side helped a lot more than on my back. And I would hold on to the hospital bed railing, and again I would use my other fist and just push on the back when the contraction came. By 1 o'clock it was every 3 minutes or so. So my husband was beside me, and I knew he was there. He couldn't do much at that point. I just had to keep visualizing and just kind of just trusting my body to what it was meant to do. I just had to keep trusting my body and listening to my body, and I was in a completely different zone. Like I really had no idea what was happening around me. I was so focused in the labor. By 5 a.m., so from 1 a.m. until 5 a.m., the doctor came back and she checked the dilation and she said, you are now fully dilated. You're a full 10 centimeters. We are ready to push. So from 1 a.m. until 5 a.m., I went from 6 centimeters to 10 centimeters, and we were ready to go. And again, I had no idea what was coming or what I had to do. So the doctors and nurses came in, they started getting everything ready. My husband was there. And I just remember my mom saying, always have a wet cloth to put on your head. If anything, get your husband to put a wet, damp, cold cloth just to help soothe and just kind of get your temperature down, because the pushing part was a little bit more strenuous than the contraction part. So the way that it works, when they say you have to be fully dilated in order to start pushing the baby. And I didn't know this, but what it felt like was when you're going to the bathroom and you're pushing stool out, that's what the feeling feels like. So you have to take a deep breath in, hold your breath while you're pushing for 5 seconds or so. Then you stop, take another deep breath, and again push out. So I had to practice that with the doctor, because I was still doing the contraction breathing, which is completely different from the pushing breathing. So all I could hear and all I could remember from 5 a.m. until 5:40 a.m. was my husband and the doctor and the nurses just encouraging me, saying, you're doing a great job, keep going. And by 5:30, I started feeling this really bad burn. And then they told me, you're gonna feel a burn coming on. And that's when we know that she's almost here. So again, I wasn't focused on the pain, I just kept focusing on the exercise. So it almost felt like I was in a marathon or a race. You know, my husband was encouraging, and everyone was cheering me on, and that really helped. I think if I had any more people in the room, it wouldn't have made me comfortable. So I was really happy with him and the doctor and the nurse. And by 5:44 a.m. they said they could see the head, just to do one final push, and I gave it everything I had, and there she was. And they took her out and they put her right on my chest right away, so skin to skin, which is exactly what I wanted. And I just couldn't believe, I think I was just still in shock. I couldn't believe she was here. And she was just the most beautiful, calm baby. She was crying a little bit, but not too much. She just seemed so happy to be close to us. And it was just such a memorable, beautiful experience. I couldn't have asked for things to go any better. I wasn't hooked up to anything. There was nothing, no IV, no antibiotics. They wanted to give me some antibiotics because I tested positive for this bacteria that they tested a few weeks ago, and I refused the antibiotics. I said, I don't need that. It's a bacteria that comes and goes, so it depends when they test it. I refused that. I didn't have any IV. I didn't have the epidural. I was literally just lying on the bed. The only thing that they had was the baby's heart monitor hooked up to me so they could measure her heartbeat and her heart rate, which was excellent and perfect the entire time. And then every few hours they would take my blood pressure. My blood pressure was perfect. There was nothing unusual, and that's when I just knew that it would happen naturally. If there was any need or any concern or any emergency that things had to be done differently, of course I would have rethink that and gone that route. But because everything was so healthy and just going perfectly, I just wanted to continue that and just do everything the way that it was meant to be, and it was incredible. Sleeping now, she's a beautiful baby. We named her Valentina. She came at 8 pounds 1 ounce and 54 centimeters long, which is a little longer than average, so I think she's gonna be tall like us. But yeah, no, it was honestly the beautiful experience. I couldn't have, I mean, I just can't stop thinking about it, and I'm just so proud to stick to my decisions. So my biggest point in this video is do your research. Just because doctors tell you certain things, they're not always going to tell you things are optional, or that you can refuse or decline, or that you have a choice. So do your research, do what you think is best, and you know yourself best. You know the pain levels that you can handle. If you need the epidural, take it. But for me, I have a very high pain tolerance. I've gone through a lot, and pain is nothing that I'm afraid of. It's something that I always challenge myself towards. I just knew I had full confidence, and it took during the pregnancy, 9 months of mental training to do what I did, and also prior to that, be able to, you know, change your perception on certain things. So fear is something that I'm generally a pretty fearless person. I don't look at fear as something, as a barrier. I look at solutions on how to overcome that. And pain, like I said, it's pain, I know it's temporary. It wasn't gonna be forever. So that is a bit of my birth story. I hope that this was helpful. If you have any questions or if I missed anything, let me know. I haven't had that much sleep, but we are doing pretty well, getting used to our little Valentina. And if you have given a natural birth without any IV or any epidural, please share in the comments below, how did your birth go? How did your labor feel? Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!